You're listening to the Racer to Racer podcast presented by Race 92. So this is a little different episode, Scott. So first off, I'm your co-host, Aaron Mack, the other co-host. Don't even need to introduce him because we're going to get into that once we get into our episode here. But he is Scott Bowie. So this past Tuesday, September 27th, was our first live show in McGilvery's Pub and Eatery in Speedway, Indiana. And man, it was a absolutely great event. Thanks Top Gun Racing, Grant King Racing for, helping us set it up and for sponsoring it. Thanks to Racer Collect, Race 92. And once again, thanks to McGilvery's. Great turnout. We had two great guests. Good friend of the show, Mr. David Land, the man, the myth, the legend. YouTube extraordinaire.
From the attic to the paddock, David Land.
And then Dave the King Wilson, great guy, someone who's been involved in racing for a while, someone who, really, when you look at what he's done, he had a huge impact on the Bob and Tom show, which, Bob and Tom, if people don't know, was a huge deal back in the day. Still is a big deal. They're still in the air, even though not in the same capacity. But Bob and Tom show was a huge deal, had a huge effect on radio. Nationwide. And, David King Wilson was really the start of the Bob and Tom show. He had a big part of that. And that's kind of, he talks about that. And I thought it was really cool.
Yeah. Obviously that's where I first heard him from. And then a few years later, I started seeing him actually hosting a show with Danny Laycock and racing with Dio and the King. And just kind of went from there. And, anybody doesn't know him, he's a stand-up comedian. Did part of his act was Elvis, but it wasn't like an Elvis impersonation. It was it was an homage to Elvis. You'd have to hear the jokes and stuff. And but he was a touring comedian. He actually owned a comedy club in Indianapolis for several years. So yeah, it was great to have him on. And he's also involved with Race for Riley, which they did with John Andretti. He still does with Jared Andretti and the Andretti family. They have raised over $5 million for Riley Hospital here in Indianapolis, which is a children's hospital, and that's what he was on there to talk about, and he did extensively, and it's something to be very proud of what he's done and what the Andrettis have done.
Absolutely. It was great having him on the show, and like I've joked about, having professionals on like him and David Land makes our job a little easier. So,
very easy. Very easy.
Very easy. So special thanks to them, and yeah, we won't waste too much people's time. Like I said, this is our first live show. We will be doing another live show. We do have it set in stone in October, Tuesday, October 25th, back in McGilvery's at 7 p.m. If you didn't make it out first time, it'd be great if you can make it out second time. But yeah, thanks for everyone to come out, and make sure you hit like and subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere podcasts can be found. We definitely appreciate all the support.
Yeah, and this is not a video, by the way. This is all audio.
Yes, great point.
We, depending on how these go, we may incorporate video in the future, but we're going to have to definitely have some help with that, because at some point we'll have to have a show producer and that sort of thing. Poor Aaron can't do it all by himself. So,
and I try to associate pictures. So when it's David King Wilson, there's a picture of all three of us at the table. So, trying to make it at least something for people. It's not much, but at least something for people to look at if they're choosing to watch it on YouTube. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you won't notice any difference at all. And actually the audio, obviously we do a Zoom, the audio, there's a little bit of latency issues and stuff, a little bit static that you hear. The audio for this will actually probably be much clearer. So if you just listen, I think the audio you will notice will be a little clearer when everyone's in person. So yeah, just great event, and maybe something we don't incorporate video in. We'll have to kind of think about it, because I think it's kind of nice. It kind of, I don't know, just people who go there actually get to experience it and kind of leave kind of exclusive. for them, but we
Yep.
still want to give, people a chance to be able to listen. So, yeah, like I said, hope everyone enjoys next week. So last week we said that our guest may be Mandy Pouts this week. So we will be releasing that next week. And I think everyone will enjoy that interview as well.
Absolutely. And Mandy was someone I wanted to talk to for a long time. I have a lot of respect for her family. I think her husband is a great race car driver, Mike Mahaney. And it was really great talking to her. It's somebody I can relate to on a lot of different levels. She, even though we're years apart in age, we all racing kids kind of grow up very similar. So it was really nice talking to her.
We had a funny conversation with her about video thumbnails. And I don't think, we're joking about people clicking on bikini thumbnails, and there's certain images on thumbnails people will click on. I don't know if we will go. She was joking with us to do it, but I don't think we're going to go down that route.
Probably not. That is your choice, though. You are the man behind it.
I know. I have a lot of power on my fingertips.
You
makes me a little scared.
You wield a heavy hammer of power.
I do. I really do. It's kind of scary. But anyway, like I said, thanks everyone that came out. If you didn't come out, and you're able to come out Tuesday, October 25th, it would mean the world to myself and Mr. Scott Bowie. But yeah, thanks for everyone and for listening and watching, and hope everyone has a great week.
Take care, everybody.
Hi, I'm Paul Page, and welcome to the Racer to Racer podcast. It's going to be a great time now, and it's all brought to you by Race 92.
My name is Marco Greco. I'm pole position, and I'm going to go for the race. I want to win the race.
So I want to know how he's behaving.
He's good. He's a great cat, actually. He's the exact opposite of Montoya, believe it or not.
Bruce, I'm not lying. I'm just slowing down and I hear the shrilling voice. Chris Economist said, Mario, you just won the ticket to the big time, and that resonated so much with me.
Well, Detroit was kind of a bad luck deal, right?
You would say that what are the chances of that glitch happening right there and then is crazy.
Go fast, go often, expect great things, and seize every opportunity you can.
Now, that helicopter pilot was part of your escape plan, right?
At that time, yes.
I had spent my lifetime getting to that moment, to that place, which is Victory Lane in Indy. And the only thing I could think of it, you just don't know what this means to me. I mean, it's out there, and I can't find the words on what it does mean.
This is a Racer to Racer podcast presented by Race 92 live at McGilvery's Pub and Eatery. I'm your co-host, Aaron Mack. The other co-host you may have seen walking out of Barber Lounge, 459 with a big old smile on his face. You may have seen him at a dirt track. He is Scott Bowie.
Hey, everybody. How's it going out there tonight?
So, first off, thanks to McGilvery's for letting us do this. Thanks to Brenda and Angela and everyone. And special thanks to Top Gun Racing and Grant King Racing for helping us put this together and also sponsoring. And yeah, thanks everyone for coming. And we are on YouTube and other podcast streaming platforms. So if you haven't liked and subscribed, please do so. So we have two guests tonight. Our first guest is a former, current radio personality and comedian, Dave the King Wilson. Dave, thank you so much for joining us.
Morning. Thank you. Thanks, guys, for having me. Hello, everybody.
See, you're a professional, so it makes it a little easier for me and Scott.
That's right. Well, it's good to be here. I've done several shows here over the years at McGilvery's, but I appreciate you boys having me on, and anybody talking about racing is a good thing, I think. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, no kidding.
So this past weekend we had the race for Riley, and my understanding is you were in attendance for that event.
Right. Well, this was our 26th annual Race for Riley. It's presented by Stoops GMC and Window World this year. And they've been longtime promoters, and we're well over $5 million in total donations to the Kids for Riley Hospital. It started in 1997. Thank you, sir. And it started in 1997 when I had a show on WIBC, and I asked John Andretti, I go, hey, will you be my guest on my radio show? And he goes, sure. And I go, how about every Tuesday? He goes, all right. And I truly believe he gave me one of the greatest gifts anybody could give anybody, and he gave me his time. Because to put it down to where, okay, I'm going to be somewhere and call somebody with that hectic schedule of being a professional race car driver and a family man and doing everything he was trying to do, was quite a commitment. And I'd asked Tony Stewart to do it, and Tony did it for like 1 week, and then he said, Dave, I just can't commit to it anymore. So John's commitment to it was admirable, was just unbelievable the time he gave me. And so as we went on, we were doing all these silly things. My producer, Matt, he was always the show stooge. You know, every show has to have a show stooge.
That's me.
That's you. It's a good gig. It's a good gig, all right? So the show stooge was Matt, our producer. And so every week John would call after his cup race. And, so, you know, I mean, there's only one winner, right? And so every week Matt started mocking him about, okay, what happened this week? Somebody run into you? Did you have a flat tire? Yellow come out? He started mocking him, all right? And so, and then they would banter back and forth. John was very funny always. So finally I decided, okay, why don't we just have a race? Okay, Hiblin, you're so fast. He goes, oh, I could smoke Andretti. It'd be unbelievable. So John, at that time, he was still living in Mooresville, North Carolina, and he would come back to Indianapolis around the holidays. And so we set up a deal in December to run a race in December of 1997 at Stefan Johansson's karting center over on Lafayette Road. That was our first one. And our first race raised about $2,600. Now, John always said $4,600 because he got Stoops to donate an additional $200 after it was over, because Jeff Stoops been a great supporter and a friend of John's forever. But that first one, that's where we started. Very humble beginnings, but it built and it built and it built, and we kept doing it and we kept doing it. And we moved it out to, this was the 19th year we've had it out at Mark Dismore's Newcastle Motorsports Park. This is their 19th anniversary. So, and with Kroger's help, it just went skyrockets. And so with John's passing, Jared has picked up the ball, and I got to tell you, the apple didn't fall far from the tree. That kid is smart. He's ambitious. He's a good race car driver. He's got his own IMSA team that runs out of Michael's shop over there. He's got a dozen employees. The only reason he's not here tonight is he and his crew and their staff, they flew today to Atlanta for the race this weekend, the IMSA race down there. And we've already got the date for next year in September back at Newcastle Motorsports Park. Yeah. And it's going to be the same weekend, the same week of the IMSA race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in 2023. So we'll be able to get some more drivers and some more interest involved. We just haven't really been able to get a lot of things going. We've had not only the Race for Riley, which has been our keystone event, in May, on the 1st of May, the first Saturday of May, we always have an event at the American Legion Post 500 that I help run. And we've raised over 10 grand doing that every year. Coming up the Monday after Thanksgiving, we will have a special deal at Sullivan's Express Hardware. Now, here's the deal. Some of you may or may not know about Sullivan's Express. It is the best Santa experience you're going to have. And I don't say that just because I'm the only Santa, because I'm only one of 8 Santas. Sorry, when you come to Dave, forget the rest of them. But they have like 8 or 9 Santas, but you take a train ride from Sullivan's, and you're riding to the North Pole to see Santa, and you go through all these animatronics and these displays and the lights and everything, and it is magical. That's the only way I can describe it. And then you show up at the North Pole, voila, here's Santa. So 4 families are on the train. They come in, they talk to Santa for 15 minutes. You get back on the train, you see different things, you go back. It is unbelievable. Well, the first Monday after Thanksgiving, Pat Sullivan donates one. He has, I'm telling secrets out of the deal here. He has 3 North Poles going at the same time. Yeah, this is big business. All right. So anyway, he donates one of his North Poles to us on a Monday night. He donates the train. He donates everything, and we sell at a premium tickets for this ride. Now, the tickets go on sale for the Santa's Sullivan's Express on November 1st, and literally by the 6th or 7th, everything's sold out. So we'll put tickets on sale the end of, towards the middle, end of November when there aren't any tickets left anymore, and we sell them at a premium price. But every dollar, and this has been the credo of our Race for Riley, every dollar that's donated goes straight to the Riley Children's Hospital Foundation. There's nobody gets, we're not, all expenses are paid for. Everything's either donated or paid for by the organizers, which are Jarrett now and myself, or Big Joe Stasiak. So we'll sell those. Pat puts out, this is unbelievable, he puts out food as special spiffs for the kids, and as food and drinks and da-da-da-da. But that's another big fundraiser that we have. So it is a blessing, because I got to tell you, the last time I saw John, it was in October, and he passed in end of January. And one of the last things he said to me was, "You've got to keep the Race for Riley going." And then at the funeral, Jarrett came up to me and he goes, "We're going to keep a Race for Riley going, or Dad's going to come back and haunt us all." So, when John was buried, he had a Riley Hospital pin on his lapel. Okay? And he would go by, he didn't do things just for the publicity. If he was in town, he had a half a day, he'd go to the hospital and just go walk around and see kids. And obviously, if there's a 2-year-old kid or a 3-year-old kid, they're not going to have any idea who John Andretti is, but the parents probably do, and the grandparents, and he can hang out and do things with them and stuff. We had a situation, and this is where giving, kind of a deal here, and you guys chip in anytime you want here. I'm sorry, I've got to.
Hey, man, you're the professional. Usually he's the one talking all the time.
Just keep on rolling. Anyway, this is where giving comes back, and as you get older, you learn that giving is much, much better than receiving. So when John, he called me in January of 2017, said, "I got stage 4 colon cancer. Don't know what we're going to do." Well, he was going to go public. So in May of 2017, we had a press conference at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It was doctors and Doug Bowles and John and Jarrett and myself. And when the press conference was over, there was a little boy in the audience. His name was Braden, and he had been a Riley patient forever, and his dad helps with our race. And he asked John, he goes, "Can I talk to you?" And John said, "Sure." So we kind of walked over there, and at that point, he was 12 years old. He had been in Riley. He had been in Riley for a Riley patient for 10 years. He'd had over 20 operations. And he said, "Now you're going to have cancer surgery here shortly, aren't you?" And John said, "Yes, I am." And he reached down on the side of his little wheelchair, and he pulled out a Cheerios stock car that John had signed for him when he was 2 years old.
Wow.
And he said, "I want you to have this because it's brought me good luck on every one of my operations." When that happens, there aren't walls tall enough to keep you from jumping to help. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'll tell one more story about John and why this is so important. There was a guy named Ron Winters. He's a sports writer that covers NASCAR, used to anyway, for newspapers down in southern Indiana. And he had a relative that lived near Kansas City who had an 8-year-old son who had terminal cancer. So this kid loved NASCAR, loved it. So she called Ron and she goes, do you know any NASCAR drivers that would call my son? And he goes, well, I know John Andretti, let me call him. So he called John Andretti, explained what was going on. John took down the kid's and mom's name and phone number, address, phone number, the whole 9 yards. Well, as it just so happened, in 2 weeks later, they were racing. Cup was racing at Kansas. John flew into town a day early, rented a car, drove an hour to these people's house, knocked on the door. They opened the door. There stands John Andretti. That little kid freaked out. And he just didn't come in and take a couple pictures, sign some hero cars and vamoose. He stayed there 5 hours.
Wow.
He played video games with this kid. They had lunch. They talked. And he left. When John, after that, about every week, John would call this family, and the kid, because the kid had an unbelievable list of questions. He would watch the race. Why did you pit on this lap? Why did that guy run into you? What had and he would have this laundry list of questions. John would answer them all. When that little boy finally died, his mother, on that little boy's headstone, had John's 43 car engraved on the headstone with John Andretti's name on it. Can you imagine how he made her feel? And that's what it is. And I've quoted this 100,000 times, but it's so true, and it's something we all need to remember. Maya Angelou once said, you will often forget what people say to you, but you will never forget how they make you feel.
Yep.
And John had an unbelievable ability to make people feel special. And we don't have the same platform as a John Andretti, obviously, but we can all do something nice for somebody all the time. And, open a door, pick up some trash. How about a smile, a kind word, just something, none of us get out of this whole thing alive. You know what I'm saying? So let's try to get along and make life easier for other people. And that's kind of the message that I think that John left behind, and one that we're very proud and committed to continuing.
How many people here met John over the years? Yeah, I bet you the last day you met him, you saw him, he treated you exactly the same as the first day you met him.
Yep.
And that's what I'll remember about John Andretti. Whether it's when he was young running the Speedrome, when I first met him, or when his sons ran sprint cars and he'd come in the shop and we'd rebuild a rear end here and there for him.
He was a fiery little dude. He was funny. He was a nice kid. But, man, I'll tell you what, when you got sideways with him, it was no good. Now, I will tell this story, and he got mad at me for telling the story, but I think it exemplifies John very well because he ended up being good friends with the Earnhardts. But when he was first started running cupping, like in the early 90s, Earnhardt come up behind him at some track somewhere and bumped him and stuck him in the fence. Kind of a welcome to NASCAR kind of stuff. Well, John wasn't having it. And he ran, after the race, he went back to Earnhardt's hauler, and he said, if you do that again, I will crash you every race until NASCAR suspends my license.
Well, you come by it honestly. I mean, the family's a little fiery.
Right. So Earnhardt never dicked with him again. But but they ended up becoming good friends, and it was so neat watching him when Jarrett was, Jarrett didn't start racing until late, but we were the first time that when John was sick and he couldn't drive the go-kart out at Newcastle Motorsports Park, and Jarrett was there running in his stead. And I remember John and Jarrett were standing over there, and and they were talking about the course, and John says, well, you need to run flat out through that corner. And Jarrett says, I can't run flat out through that corner. And John just looked at him and he goes, don't make me suit up. Oh,
that's
Lordy.
So funny.
All right.
So a couple of things. First off, I think the story, Dave, of how you kind of got involved in broadcasting is really cool. And the story about how you got the nickname The King, because I didn't understand why you got that nickname until I did some research.
Well, what happened was I started trying to do stand-up comedy in the late 70s, just off and on, and there really wasn't any comedy clubs. And there was a lady that had some open night, one-nighters on Monday night, and I would go in there on occasion. But finally, in February of 1983, I decided, okay, I am going to start trying to do stand-up comedy. So I start trying to do stand-up, and I've been there 3 months. Been working 3 months. I had 8 minutes worth of jokes. And Bob and Tom had just come to town that spring, and Tom Griswold saw me at an open stage. He goes, hey, you're funny. Why don't you come on our show in the morning? And I said, sure. So that first morning, I went on the Bob and Tom show, and that first morning, I did all 8 minutes of my joke. And when the show was over, Tom said, man, that was great. Come back next week. And I went, man, that had taken me 3 months to come up with that. So I invented a character, the King, Elvis, because it's easier to write jokes for a character than for somebody you don't know. For example, if I said, well, I was 20 years old till I found out gravy wasn't a soft drink, you're thinking, what? But if the King says, oh, man, I was 20 years old till I found out gravy wasn't a soft drink. Oh, thank you very much. Ta-da. And so I was blessed beyond compare with that deal. I mean, the King took off, and Tom told me, he goes, the King was really the first thing that hit on our show that really made the phone start ringing. And the power of that show, I mean, I sold tickets all over central Indiana at an amazing rate. And it was because of the power of the Bob and Tom show. I mean, they were so huge back then. And I talk to Bob on occasion. I mean, he's retired and off and about. Very rarely. It's usually just like a text message or something. But I talk to Tom 2 or 3 or 4 times a year about this, that, and the other. He always brings his family, his daughters, the youngest, in to see Santa at Sullivan's. He texts me one Christmas Eve, and he says, you're not going to believe what my youngest did. She left out hand sanitizer for Santa. So I thought, this is perfect. So at Christmas Eve, I had done some visits as Santa, and I came back home. I'm in my kitchen. I got my little tree that's on a table behind me. I set my phone up, and I recorded a little deal. I said, you know, you girls were great. I got to tell you, the cookies you left out. Oh my goodness, I'm still enjoying those. And those carrots you left out from my reindeer. Dasher talked about your house all night long. But I got to tell you, nobody else in the whole wide world left Santa out hand sanitizer. I thank you so much for that. And Tom played that for his little girls that next morning, and they flipped out. That was so cool. And that's the magic of being Santa. I mean, you know, when you walk in and you see some little 4 or 5-year-old girl, and boy or girl, and their face just explodes. There's really no feeling like that. It's very cool. And I've done some, Santa gigs for people in different situations, and it's very rewarding. And Marie Hall really helped me get going in this whole thing several years ago. She bought my first Santa suit. Marie did. She did. So it's all Marie's fault.
Now, a lot of people here remember you from Dio and the King.
Right.
Now, Dio isn't Elvis. He isn't Santa, but he had a personality to match.
Oh Lord.
What? How did you get involved with Dio?
Well, Terry Lingner had asked me to start doing some things. I did some things for ESPN with the Fastmasters, and then ESPN2 with the Lightning series out at the Velodrome. And I was doing some voiceover work for Speed Week. Remember that show they used to have with Bob Jenkins and everything like? And so he had Dio, the camera guy, going out, and we would shoot this here and shoot that there, and then all of a sudden, boom, here we are. He asked me if I wanted to do this TV show, and I said sure. And so it was a magical time. It was in 1993, and you remember this, Stewart and Kenny Irwin and Mike Bliss, and I mean, you name it, all the guys running sprints and midgets back then. And it was a lot of fun, and I ad-libbed. One of my favorite memories of that whole thing was Tice Carlson's family had state bail bonding, and they were one of our sponsors. And one of the things we would do is we would ad-lib commercials, okay? And so they would just say, okay, go. And then state bail bonding, and I just ad-libbed this one night. I said, state bail bonding, ain't no glamour to being in the Slammer. So after the show, Tice's parents come up and they go, "Can we buy that from you?" And I go, "You can have it." Next thing I know, it's on buses, shirts. It was really the coolest. And somebody sent me a link on YouTube of some of those old commercials. And one of my favorite ones, I'm talking to Tice, and I'm going, "Oh, Tice," I go, "Man, state bail bonding, you know." I go, "What's the most common infraction that you have that you got to bail people out of jail for?" And he said, "Public urination." And the camera pans left, and there's Dio standing in the corner with his back to us, like peeing in the corner. And he turns around and he goes, zips up his pants. I go, "Well, Tice, looks like you got your next customer," you know. And God, and I'm not proud of this one, but I said, "You know, you got yourself in a pickle. You know, drunk driving, sure you had a bottle of tequila, but what a stupid place to put a playground." You know, you need to call state bail bonding. But doing a lot of those live spots were so much fun. And, you know, I did a thing today for Cardinal Rudder High School. There was a fundraiser. I had to do just a quick, brief little video thing. And the guy who was recording it was a videographer that worked with Dio at several tracks. Matter of fact, he ran the cameras, one of the cameras at Dio and the King. And he said he had to go up on the roof there at the track one year and shoot some video, and Dio was going to be his producer or director or spotter or whatever. And so he walks up there lugging his stuff, and Dio was laying on the top of the penthouse, you know, on the top flat part up there, laying on some towels in his underwear, sunbathing. Only Dio Laycock, boy, let me tell you.
You know, Dio, the thing about Dio is, I mean, he was such a big personality, but he really was a trailblazer. I mean, when you think about all the things he did years before anybody else, I mean, basically what we're doing now, he did in the 90s.
Yes, he did. I mean, he had that radio show. I mean, he really helped Terry Lingner. Terry Lingner was the guy that ESPN hired, like one of the first employees they hired. And Lingner tells a story about they wanted to cover USAC racing, and nobody even knew what the hell USAC racing was in Connecticut. And Lingner goes, "Well, I do." And so then that's how that all started. But Dio was a huge part of that in doing the spotting and doing stuff. And as a matter of fact, if you watch Flow Racing kind of started in somewhat due to Dio. And that happened was they were out in Ventura. This was a long, long time ago. And the guys that started Flow Racing, they were doing something with a team or something. They go, "Well, ESPN wants to send a crew by to shoot some video to air during tonight's race." So, of course, these guys are going, "Man, ESPN's coming." Well, I'm sure a big 53-foot semi and staff and crew and lighting and blah, blah, blah. Well, Dio shows up in his rental car, jumps out with a camera on his shoulder. "I'm ESPN, stand over here, what are we going to do?" And they thought, this damn TV thing's a lot easier than we thought it was. And now you've got, I mean, it's taken years to evolve, but look what you got now with Flow Racing. I mean, good grief. You can't pick the number of races, you know, to watch. It's hard to, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's almost impossible.
Toast to Dio.
Dio Laycock.
May we all be buried in a caskets made out of a 100-year oak tree that we plant tomorrow. God bless you, Dio.
So the last thing I wanted to ask about, so one of my favorite things that you've done was Fantasy 500. If you talk a little bit about kind of how that idea came about and kind of the process behind it.
Wow. Well, the Fantasy 500 was a 10-month riding ordeal. And my idea was this. Let's take segments of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Radio Network broadcast that they had over there on 16th Street and build a story and use segments of these old broadcasts to tell the story like it's a radio race, like we were having a Fantasy 500. And we had 33 drivers, and I picked them. And I picked every 2 and 3 time winner, every 2, 3, and 4 time winner. Then I picked one of my favorites, and I picked Dan Gurney. Dan Gurney was not one of my favorites, but I had Dan Gurney drop out of the race first because he was not one of my favorites. Anyway, so we had all this sound. So, okay, I found clips, and I tried to find a clip or a recording of every driver, and of course, not every driver you could find. And so we just started trying to build this in this theater of mind where if you could picture Lou Palmer and Paul Page and Bob Jenkins and Mike King and Sid Collins, thank you. The original voice, thank you very much. And me, we're sitting up in the tower and we're calling this race. And people got into this, you cannot believe. A guy called me a couple days before the race, and he called me on the air, and he goes, Dave, I just drove by the track, and Ray Haroon was in the Marmor Wasp breaking in some tires. And, and all these people were fired up. And Donald Davidson didn't. He goes, I don't know if this is going to work. And a couple weeks beforehand, he goes, man, people are excited about this. And so it was really cool. And the morning of the deal, we had this race. Now, this was all set to go. I had it edited, all the voices cut. You know, we had the 1960 Rathman Ward battle, okay? And I used some of the original deal with Ahern in one, and they go on around and come back around and sit, and then they throw it, and there's, Vince Welch in one, and here's Jake Query in two, and down here there's Mark Janes in three, and they're calling that Rathman dives below Ward, diving into turn number 3. You know how exciting it is, and we intermixed all that and a whole bunch of different stuff, and so it was Thursday before the Sunday. I had everything edited, everything put to bed. I had the MS Communications web team up in Chicago. I had gone to the Speedway, got a bunch of black and white pictures that they would show on the website in conjunction with the race. Like if I was talking about in the pre-race parade, there was Dean and Jerry. You know, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis were there, and a picture of Jerry Lewis and Martin would show up at the okay. All this was settled. Thursday afternoon, the producer or one of the program directors, I'm walking down to do my show, and he goes, oh, by the way, the Pacers moved the start of their time from 6 o'clock, the start time, to noon. So we're have to interrupt the race for the fantasy. Oh, crap. So I dug back in, and I found a bunch of stuff from the 67 rainout. Oh, wow. Which was pretty cool because they talked to Dan Blocker, your first race. That was my first race too. They talked to Dan Blocker, and all the Bonanza guys were there because Chevrolet was a big sponsor of Bonanza, and they were all there. And Sid Collins is talking to them, and so I go, we got a rain delay, so I'll tell you what, we're just going to cut away, and we'll let the Pacers go ahead and fill in for a little bit. And then we came back on, but the Pacers made me mad on that deal. But anyway. It was a work of love, and we did a pre-race show on WIBC that morning like we would have before the start of any other 500. A guy called me, and he goes, Dave, because the thing was the deal was if you went to the Fantasy 500, everybody was getting a free Long's donut when they came on the grounds. So this guy ran down to Long's. He said, Dave, I bought a dozen Long donuts. I'm sitting here in the infield eating them, listening to it, crying like a baby. Because, a lot of those memories of that race and those guys, is sentimental. It means a lot to a lot of us that are here.
Oh, absolutely.
So, thank you for bringing that up, though. But, it was a labor of love, and it took 10 solid months and Bill Estes came along and sponsored that thing. It was truly fabulous. Murray?
I want to know if your CDs are still available.
They are. I got them down in my basement. I don't have any way of selling them. I need to sell them.
Should have brought them in your trunk.
I should have, yeah.
Upstairs, because I tell you, it's really something to listen to. I've told many customers, get in the car and take a trip.
Yeah, well, thank you, Marie. I do need to get them out of that because I got several of them in the base. Yeah. Yeah, because you open it up and it had a fold-out like you would on race day, the program on race day with all the starting lineup.
Yep.
It had the starting lineup with Ray Haroon all the way to Elio Castro Neves.
No.
No, but I will tell you this. On the final lap, the final lap coming down for the checkered flag is Jimmy Bryan, AJ, Al Sr., and Michael Andretti. And I'm not going to tell you who won, but I will tell you Michael Andretti did not win. And when I told him, he goes, "Damn, I can't even win a fake 500." Yeah. So, but no, I got him, and I need to get that taken care of. So.
Well, we appreciate you coming on.
Dave,
thanks.
Thank you so much.
I went longer than 20 minutes. My apologies.
That's all right.
We started a little late.
Well, that's right. We did. We started late. Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, I think we're ready for our next guest.
Yes, our next guest, who said we could interrupt him while he's eating.
And you did it.
Yep. Hey, man, we held off as long as we could. From the attic to the paddock, the man, David Land.
Boy, the king really gave me a hard act to follow.
Wait, he's good.
I got to tell you, I want to say this because, I guess I didn't realize how much of my childhood Dave the King Wilson had to do with. I remember, as a young, like 5 or 6 years old, I remember watching those DO shows that they did on I think it was UPN 23 or the Windy channel. And the Fantasy 500 was I was like an 8 or 9 year old kid, and it was like the coolest thing ever because, as a student of the history of the sport, it was just like, we get to do another 500 this year? And I remember having that website up, and it was so cool. So, and I think also you lived in Franklin, Indiana, which I also did. So you have 2 people from Franklin, Indiana on one broadcast. How do you feel about that?
Not good. Not good.
But yeah, that's awesome. And also my mom says hi, Dave. She was going to kill me if I didn't say that.
Man, Scott's been having some great ideas for some T-shirts. What was it, from the attic to the paddock?
Attic to the paddock. Tell them why I say that.
Well, because, essentially I started doing videos in my attic, my uncle's attic. I was a college dropout. Didn't really have a way, no connections to IndyCar racing. My dad had worked in the IRL for a couple of years, but outside of that, really nothing. And I said, well, how do I get here? And I guess a YouTube channel was the way to get there. I'm as flabbergasted as you guys are, to be honest.
Yeah, obviously I haven't known you very long, but I ran across your videos probably 3 years ago. And it was really neat to be able to find some on YouTube where it was somebody talking about IndyCar. We weren't talking about F1, weren't talking about NASCAR. We're actually talking about, and the guy had an opinion. Not an opinion I always agree with, but he had an opinion.
If everybody agreed with every opinion I had, I'd be not doing my job right.
That's right.
You got to get people talking.
That's right.
But no, it was a risk, right? But it was a calculated risk to talk about IndyCar racing on the internet because I knew that there was a market for it because I'm in that market. And, human beings are, 92% all alike. So I figured there were other people who were interested in IndyCar racing the way I was. And I saw people online saying, somebody has got to do a show about this. And I'm like, well, if you want something done right, do it yourself, so to speak. So I just started talking about it. And obviously, there have been some decisions over the years in IndyCar racing that get people fired up, and I had some pent-up opinions, and I let it fly. It's funny, my cameraman showed me the very first, specifically IndyCar opinion video, and I just cringed because I was like, oh my God, I'd get so much hate in the paddock if I said this nowadays. But it's funny. It's also catharsis for people. Because I think I do try my best to speak for the fans. I don't want to lose, just because I have access now, lose that kind of connection to where I came from.
Well, I think you, like others before you, are allowed to say things that maybe others can't say.
Yes, I've been told that.
For political reasons. It allows them to, somebody gives them a voice too, and it's this sport, like all sports, it's tough, man, especially because it's such a closed group, and I think you do great though. I think you've really carved out a niche. You've really you get to tell your opinion, and so far no one's held that against you yet.
Well, no, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true. There are a few.
Well, there's a couple.
I would like to think that there are less people who hold it against me than don't hold it against me.
Right.
If that scale tips at some point, perhaps we're going to be having a much different discussion. But no, I mean, and like you said, the other thing about like the opinions in racing is it's not just politics. There's a lot of money on the line. If you
Absolutely.
make someone look foolish and point out rightly why they look foolish, they don't take too kindly to that.
No, absolutely.
So I would definitely say if any IndyCar season was made for David Lane on YouTube, it would be this IndyCar season. I mean, have you ever seen a silly season start before the season was even done?
No, we were talking about silly season before the Indy 500. I mean, Mark Janes, who bless his soul, he put me on a live mic on the IndyCar radio network. I don't know what he was thinking, but we were talking about this during practice for the 500 was the silly season, and it's just like it's unbelievable how little contracts seem to matter recently. But it has been extremely exciting, and there's been a lot to talk about. Ultimately, not a lot has come of it because I guess Alex Palou's driving for the same team he was going to drive for originally.
Right.
But it's fun. It's been fun this year to kind of dive in and try to explore some of these backstabbings throughout the paddock.
Man, the Alex Palou deal, that took up a lot of bandwidth on your channel. I mean, you did
why wouldn't it?
You did like a 3-hour live YouTube video off of that, right?
That was unbelievable. The fact that there was, because it was spur of the moment.
Right.
Actually, I should give a shout out to my friend Steve over there because I called him and I was like, I don't know what to do. Because like when that broke, it's like, this is the craziest thing ever. It's unprecedented because these kind of contract things, especially in IndyCar racing, never happen. And it seemed like it was changing every minute. I'm like, how do I do a video about this? Because it's going to be out of date by the time I get done and edited and uploaded. And Steve just said, why don't you just go live? I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So I went live, and I think we had like 1,300 live viewers for like 3 hours, and the numbers never dipped. And I was getting DMs. I don't want to say everybody I got a DM from, but I did spoil this one on the broadcast. I got a DM from Colton Herta, and he was like, oh, I'm watching. And I realized this guy is sitting in Portugal. He just tested a Formula One car, and he's watching this thing and sending me a text saying, hey, I'm watching it. Like, holy crap.
That's because he signed a contract with McLaren too.
Yeah, that's what. So what was funny was I called him out on the stream. I'm like, oh, Colton, you got to come on and tell us your opinion about that. And I thought, wait a second, he's a McLaren driver. There ain't no way. I shouldn't have even said he was watching this.
The best part about the whole deal is I sent you a text message before that, and you responded to my text message on the live stream.
Oh, yeah, that would, yeah. I'll tell you, my phone was blowing up.
And he texted me. I wasn't even watching it. He texted me your response to my text message.
What did I say?
I asked you if your AC was back.
My AC was back. Yeah, my AC broke when it was 100 degrees in July. That was tough.
By the way.
Yeah, if you need a good AC guy, call the guys at Good Guys. They're the best. If you don't know what I'm talking about, listen to our show.
10-4. The Good Guys.
The Good Guys.
But, so also today, the IndyCar series schedule came out for next year.
Oh, great. You're going to get me in trouble.
I mean, it's pretty similar, right?
It's yes, it's very similar. I mean, but we expected that. I mean, they've told pretty much everybody, don't expect any changes.
Right.
I mean, what was crazy was, like, again, kind of going back to that silly season being so early this year, is like somebody told me at St. Pete, walked up to me and said, hey, they're thinking about going to Milwaukee next year. I'm like, okay. But I think that was more of a replacement for Texas, and the fact that Texas put on one of the better races of the whole year kind of kept them on the schedule, at least for next year. Even though they say they have a multi-year deal, but everybody's talking about how Texas is going to get bulldozed and turned into a short track, which may or may not be compatible with IndyCar racing. So I don't know. Or maybe not a short track, but like a super speedway like Atlanta did. And we've seen kind of the result of IndyCars running on 1.5 milers that are big pack racing tracks. So I don't think that would be good, but we'll see. I would love Michigan. Michigan should be the season finale. 500-mile race, a week of practice. That'd be great. But they'll never do that.
You will see a unicorn before you ever see them go back to Michigan.
It's amazing because Roger owned that track.
Yep.
And somebody told me that they walked up to him at Laguna and was like, "You need to go back to Michigan." He was like, "Yeah, great racing there, but, you're going to get me in trouble.
They won't go back. They're not going. They're just not going to go run those big fast places like that. I mean, you got Texas,
which won't be compatible in 2 years,
and they're just not going to do it. Yeah, I just can't see it.
I would
love to. I mean, I went to Michigan 3 or 4 times. Great racing. Today's world, they're not going to go back. I don't think.
I was about to say.
Jimmy. So he announced his retirement, but he's also going to do a bucket list tour in 2023. He never announced exactly what he was doing yet. I think some of us think he's going to do the Coke 600 Indy 500 double, which would be, I think, pretty cool. And he's going to join probably Kyle Busch in doing that. I think it was Jenna Fryer who said Arrow McLaren SP is actively pursuing him right now. So that's good. Hopefully that gets done. And I've even heard people tell me that Kyle Larson's going to do it. So we'll see. Hopefully it would be really neat if there's 3 guys doing the double in 1 year, especially with the big names that those 3 drivers have. But obviously, we sat here. Hey, maybe are there team owners in here? Maybe there's some team owners who can make that happen. I don't know.
No, I don't know any, do you?
I'm putting you guys on the spot. I don't know, but they.
I'm never on the spot. You want to hear something from me, I'll give you the truth.
I know. That's why I like you guys, because you're truth tellers.
We're grassroots racers.
Yes. Love it.
Grassroots racers.
Love it. But yeah, you guys should call Kyle Larson. Just do me a solid.
You have his number?
I don't have Kyle's number. I have
What? You don't?
No.
I thought you had all those guys' numbers.
Not Kyle. I don't cover enough NASCAR. Maybe I need to go do the dirt.
Man,
stuff.
how about Kyle Busch being thrown in there to the mix? That was just that was like free money to you, right?
Oh, yeah. No, I love it when there's drama like that because, when you have an opinion and there's something that, especially involving a driver who a lot of people have opinions about, Kyle Busch, it's very lucrative times. There's no doubt about it. But and hopefully he does the 500 because if he does the 500, man, that's gonna be great. I mean, not just for me, but for the sport, because he's gonna bring so many eyeballs. And there's not really many IndyCar drivers that people hate, and I think Kyle brings hate,
a level of dislike,
which is I love Kyle Busch for that. I wish somebody would do a heel turn. I wish Newgarden would just start punching people, I wish he would have thrown something at Grosjean, Yeah. And then the best thing he ever did was start yelling at people on Twitter, and then Roger made him apologize to everybody. And it's come on, dude. let one of your drivers be controversial. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's you got to be careful.
Do they have this place bugged? I hope not.
Or maybe a bug in the room.
I think everywhere is bugged when it comes to Raj.
When you're around.
When it comes to Raj, I think he's got ears everywhere.
Well, the good news is I think Roger Penske has no idea who I am. It's great because he walked up to me in the media center and IMS was just like, "Hi, I'm Roger." I'm like, "Okay, hi, I'm David." You don't know who I am. It's great.
Should he know who you are?
What?
Should he know who you are?
I hope not. Well, maybe he should. I don't know. Should he know who I am?
I don't know. I heard Chip Ganassi knows who you are.
Oh, he does?
That's what you said.
No, he was giving me the side eye because I was talking to his driver, but I think that was just more of not liking journalists, which I think, I don't blame him.
So we got a 6-month off season.
Yeah, you're going to get me on one. You're already winding me up.
So, where do you see the sport next year? Stingray Rob is saying he's going IndyCar race. He's not even going back to Indy Lights. He says he's going to IndyCar racing next year.
I saw that article, and it's interesting because I spoke to him, and I've actually spoke to his people at Laguna Seca, and their impression was that their best opportunity was to do another season of Lights. Now,
I think things have changed.
I think things, so that's what's interesting, is that something had to have significantly changed. I know there's a couple of seats that I think we thought were not in play, like, for example, the 4 Foyt car that are now. But at the same time, like, and nothing against AJ Foyt Racing, I like those guys, but, you know, if you were going from driving a winning car at Andretti in Lights, you're driving a car that hasn't performed quite as well in IndyCar, you know, you got to be very careful with that because you have a potential to hurt your career in a slow car, and that's the problem. But let's just throw it out there. We know now Jimmy's not doing the full season. That opens up a Honda. What's stopping Andretti from doing another car if say, Stingray has a bunch of potato money and he wants to go do it?
No, you're right. You know, I mean, obviously the complexion of Indy Lights changed.
There's going to be 20 cars in that series next year.
Yeah, I know. And
Henry Malukas is entering all of them.
Right. You know, but you know, they at the banquet they take away over nearly $500,000, over $500,000 with the incentives.
Oh well, yeah, this.
And I think drivers are starting to look. Hey, you know, if I'm going to spend this money, and I've already ran Lights, what am I going back to Lights for?
Well, right, yeah, and especially if you have close to the budget already. The problem is right now with IndyCar, and not the problem. This is actually a good thing for the team owners. Is that there's so much competition for those seats that they can charge way more money than they were otherwise doing a couple of years ago. I mean, like the Lights budget and an IndyCar budget partial season, or maybe even most of the season, was about the same around like 2017. It's increased significantly now, where that's why I think you're seeing the increase in Lights, because now if you have $1 million, you can't play an IndyCar anymore for a significant amount of race. You could probably get one race for that, but you can go do a full season of Lights and hopefully then win that scholarship, which has gotten a little bit smaller now, to hopefully go to IndyCar and subsidize a little bit.
About half.
We need to do a bug sweep before I start talking about this.
Yeah, I was going to say this may get you in some trouble.
I mean, you know, I read that and I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit, but I think the big thing, the way Roger runs a series, and you've seen this now in IndyCar too, is that I think what Roger first and foremost is a car owner. And so he's going to make the business make sense for car owners first. And so if he, you know, when he took over Lights, what was he going to do? He was going to make it so that the car owners got paid and could make a decent living doing Indy Lights. And you're seeing that reflected in the car counts. Now, the question is going to be, did you break the ladder system? Because right now, an Indy Pro 2000 championship pays as much as winning the Lights championship.
No, it pays more.
More. Okay, well, that's even worse.
$110,000 more.
Okay, yeah. So that's, you know, half a tire bill for a year. But, you know, it's that's a problem. And that's because you have different entities running different parts of the ladder system. And they don't particularly like each other, which is the other problem.
Right. Well, and also, I mean, what Indy Lights comes back with is says, well, we pay purse money now. It's like $50,000 to win. It's the top 4, and they say, well, that offsets it. And if you do the math, it does offset that difference. But the thing is, it gets spread out amongst a bunch of different people, and it doesn't incentivize. It isn't the incentive that they signed up for.
No, and that's going to be the transition with Lights, is that you're going to have to start looking at it more like Xfinity than like a true ladder system, which is fine, because if you're trying, because if let's say Roger is trying to get Lights, you know, his plan is eventually to get Lights a TV deal, a real TV deal, not just on Peacock. Well, then that's the way to do it, is try to make it so that you have stable teams, stable drivers in that series, and guys who can actually make a living staying in that series. But it's going to be, but I don't know if Lights is built for that. And it seems like Lights has really achieved what it was originally designed to do, which is to get young talent fostered and grown in this country, not necessarily from this country, but drivers who have participated in our ladder system from karts to cars into IndyCar. And we've seen that. I mean, obviously, Colton Herta had the help of his name, but guys like Pato Award, guys like Joseph Newgarden, guys like
Askew.
It's
Kirkwood.
unfortunate he doesn't have a ride, but yeah, Kirkwood.
Right.
These guys probably would have made it to IndyCar under different circumstances, but I think they got there earlier and were able to flourish earlier because they were in our ladder system.
I agree. I don't see any driver that goes and runs Indy Lights and says, boy, I want to be here for the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah. Oh, no,
I mean,
no.
they
Well,
just,
outside Dalton Kellett for a little while. I think he ran about 700 lights races or something like that. But even he made it to IndyCar.
Right.
So it's
right.
it's I don't know. I would like to see lights kind of become like a regional divisional series. I think if we had more, because I think something that sprint car racing does really well is has different regions of drivers and cars competing, and drivers can move up. Yeah, and drivers can move up into the national touring series, and vice versa, and then they can go bushwhack other races across the country and help build up tracks or events that they feel are interesting. So, and then you go to Knoxville and there's 100 cars, and then we wonder why there's we struggle to get 33 at the 500. Well, it's because there's just not enough Indy cars, competing, or not enough people involved in the sport of IndyCar racing or American open wheel racing. I guess if we're talking about the ladder system, to sustain kind of what we want and expect out of IndyCar.
You got a question there, bud?
Oh, question. Oh, yeah.
But nowadays, it's all about money.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
You forgot about, the local short tracks and all that stuff. And that's where it needs to come back to.
I would agree, but it's tough to do that, because that's going to be the problem. Is the IndyCar is so specialized right now that going from a midget on dirt to go into an IndyCar is tough to do. You have to be a Kyle Larson to get there.
Back in the day, if I'm lying, I'm dying. But you ran majors, you went sprint cars, and you went silver crown cars.
Yes.
Back in the day, look at AJ.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And there are guys who can drive anything. But you've got, and that's the thing, we need to figure out a way to make.
Not no more. Not no more.
Not now? Larson? You don't think you could put Kyle Busch in a midget and he wouldn't go fast? I don't know. I guess not. Maybe.
Yeah, it's tough.
But
it costs so much money.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, I didn't say Chase Elliott, did I?
I think if he had enough laps, I think a lot of those guys would be good if you got them enough laps.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think a lot of the foreign drivers would be good if that's how they had to grow up. I mean, they just didn't have to. That's my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just tough now. There's not, the King was just talking about it. ESPN is not sending cameras to short track races anymore. So It's tough to get that exposure. It's tough to get that money. It's tough to, because that's the thing. When AJ Foyt was coming up in an era where television was becoming very important. And a lot of his, maybe not as totally formative races in the midgets, but a lot of his races like sprint cars in the 60s and 70s were on Wide World of Sports in front of millions of people. And right now, we don't have that. It's very fractured auto racing. It's all over the place, and it's hard to find sometimes. It's easy to find if you're a racing person, but if you're a non-racing person, how the hell are you going to get on Flow Sports,
Well, that is one of the things. With more information, with more availability of access to different things, it becomes hard. Oddly, it becomes, in the age of information, it is harder to find information today.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good
than
point.
It's ever been.
No, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to do YouTube with IndyCar racing was I'm there's not enough people talking about this, and And to be quite honest, the series wasn't, and still isn't, doing enough to get the message out there on platforms that people can see what's going on.
I think, and if Roger's got the room bugged, that's all right. I think IndyCar is horrible at promoting their racing.
He said that.
I think they're
didn't say
terrible
that.
at it. I just think they are just terrible at promoting what they have and getting their drivers out there. There's great personalities that run those cars.
Absolutely.
And I mean, you're around them all the time.
Pato Award should be a national star.
Well, Joseph Newgarden should be.
Newgarden would be the easiest one. He's literally married to a Disney princess. Like,
Absolutely.
how do you not market that?
Absolutely.
Right.
It's unbelievable how poor of a job they do with all of the access and availability and monetary, the financing and everything they have available to them. I mean, that's just sad, but that's just the truth.
Right. The thing you always reference, Scott, is NFL Films.
NFL
how they do everything.
NFL Films.
Hey, doesn't IndyCar have like a IMS Productions or something like that?
They sure do.
I don't know.
NFL Films made NFL as much as the players playing the game did, because they found an interesting way to show it.
And it's not like they didn't do it before. Like I am a product of, in a lot of ways, like the IRL propaganda that they made in 1996, 97, 98. Like they were pumping that stuff out. They're not anymore, but they were at one point. And I'm surprised, especially again, like you said, the ease of access to information, and you can just put anything you want on the internet. I mean, within reason, obviously, but like
no, you can find anything on the internet. There's just if you're willing to search for it, you can find it.
That may be true. I wouldn't know.
Oh no, you know, David.
I know there's a couple of Reddit forums out there.
Well, yeah, that's those. I hope there's no one who posts on Reddit here because I might say a few bad things about them. No, I mean, I think everybody's got an opinion, and some opinions are dirtier than others. That's my opinion.
Right.
I have a very clean opinion. My opinions are the best, the most shiny.
Well, I think we are about running out of time.
Oh, here comes the...
But no. You have a special job that we just found out
Well, first
about.
off, I think I have a couple ads I need to get into.
Oh, get those ads in.
Yeah, get the ad reads
First
in.
off, if you want David Land merchandise, doesn't even wear it.
Well, I could have worn it. I didn't know. You told me not to say. I didn't know what I was supposed to say or not. Well, there we go. Look at this. You go to race92.com/David you can buy some shirts.
And we now have the Grand King Racing and Top Gun Racing merchandise.
All right.
On race92.com.
And that's going to have 57 Kyle Larson on it in May, right?
Absolutely.
We're confirming that.
I'm already working on the
design. Is that confirmed?
Already got the design done. It's ready to...
Oh, yeah. No, it'd be 75. Well, 57, 75 because they're entering two cars. They're doing a two-car team because we're going to have bump day this year. Yeah. But both Top Gun cars are making it.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right.
Absolutely. Oh, so we got two Top Gun
Yeah, we're going to have 57 and 75. We're going to have two cars.
Okay.
We're going to have the Samsonite throwback, and we're going to have the Johnny Lightning throwback.
Who's in the other one?
What? Am I spoiling things? I'm literally just shooting off the cuff here.
You've been silenced.
I think I'm unintentionally spoiling things.
You have been silenced. And also, I will mention November 11th, November 12th. I can mention that, right?
Yes, you can.
We will be doing a speaker event and book signing with Randy Lanier at Grand King Race Shops on November 11th and 12th in the evening. And limited space. So if you're interested, you can go see Stephanie after the show.
You should definitely go
call her.
see Stephanie. Everybody loves Stephanie.
But, and I will also mention, Scott, when we first started the podcast, one of our really first supporters or, I guess, sponsors was Racer Collect, Patrick Patton.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Patrick, for coming out.
Thank you, Patrick.
And if you're looking for any racing memorabilia, go to racercollect.com. He's got a cool concept. Like, he's worked directly with a bunch of drivers, a couple IndyCar drivers, and some other drivers in lower series, where he sells their memorabilia for them. So it's real because it's coming directly from the source. So, and he has a lot of other cool stuff as well. So if you're looking for anything, please go to his website. or if you're looking to sell anything, he'd be more than happy to do it for you. And also, yes, thank you to McGilvery's for letting us do this. I was getting
Tip well. Tip well.
The cheese fries are great. I can't wait to dig back into those.
We'll see.
I know.
That's when
know.
they're the best.
Listen.
The question is, how much does David Land tip?
If the normal person tips 20, David goes 50.
Yeah. Oh, that. Wow. We waited all night for that.
We got sound effects.
Dang.
I sure did. So we have some giveaways. So
that's right. Giveaways.
We have enlisted you, David, to do this.
Uh-oh. They have not told me what to do.
We got a bunch of stuff. So we have stickers. We have Grand King racers.
See, if you told me to prepare for this, I would have done like trivia night here or something.
I know.
Well, I'd have to think of stuff.
There's a lot of stuff here.
Oh, good Lord. Oh my gosh. Are those Christmas ornaments? Oh yeah, look at this. So when Santa Dave comes down the chimney,
that's right.
Yeah, he brings Grand King Racer stuff.
And we have hats.
Oh my gosh, look at all these hats.
How do we want to do this, Scott?
This is a one-of-a-kind hat, so says Stephanie Throckmorton.
Man, I have no idea. How do you want to do this?
I told you, trivia.
Do trivia.
All right, Scott. You're the historian here.
No, you are the historian.
Who won the first race of IndyCar season 2022?
Steph, you can't win your own stuff back.
I see a hand back there.
Who gets it?
Who said it? We got it. We need
Which one do you want?
Which one do you want, Max? He wants the red one. Oh, intercepted!
Was that Grant on the side of that?
Okay.
Hey, Billy, is that Grant?
That is Grant. Oh, we can. Hold on, let me think. I can think of something. Oh, well, okay. What was the name of the chassis that Al Sr. won his first Indy 500 in?
Ooh.
Specifically, there was 2 letters in front of that. All right, Max. He's just gonna rob us. What do you want, Max? All right, Danny. What do you want?
What do you want?
What you want, Danny?
Well, the red one's gone.
Oh man, I'm going.
All right, I'm going softball on this one. Who won the 2022 Chili Bowl? You cannot answer because you got the shirt on.
Who did win the Chili Bowl? I don't remember.
Nope, 2022. Man, I thought we had some race. It was Thorson. Give the man a hat.
All right.
Cover up his concussion.
Well,
What do you want? You want a hat or? Who was it?
Who got it?
Chris.
Chris got it.
You want a hat?
What you want, Chris? He wants a rag.
Rag. Here, give the man 2 rags.
Oh.
Wet him down. Put him on your head. That is my nephew, by the way.
Yay!
I want
Give it up for the nephew.
I want to thank him for coming out. He took a hard crash last week. He's not feeling too well, but he come out to support us. Oh, they tried.
All right, we got another trivia question. What team entered Kenny Schroeder in the 1983 Indianapolis 500? Billy, you're not allowed to answer this.
Ooh.
All of them. No, I'm just kidding. Throckmorton. Kenny Schroeder in 1983. Somebody's got to know this. Somebody's getting I know Billy's getting annoyed. That's not too. That's too simple? You think my trivia is too simple? No one's getting it.
Has anyone got it yet?
No one's got it.
Was Grant King.
It was. Grant King Racers.
Who got it?
She did. Oh, give her a Christmas ornament.
Give her a Christmas ornament.
Christmas ornament.
Yeah.
Bonus rag if you can say who the chief mechanic was on that. No, not Big Naughty, that's for sure.
No, Big Naughty won the race that year.
Nope. He shares the last name with somebody in this room. 2 people in this room, actually. Ed Ballard.
There we go.
That's right, my father.
What do you want? You want a hat?
All right.
Give the man 2. We have a lot of them. All right.
Are we just going to start throwing the hats out now?
Yeah, we can do something. Who won the IndyCar championship this year? Simple.
Hey. In the back. In the
We
back.
get 2.
We got 2. Yeah, just start giving stuff away.
Thank you. What do you want? Hat? I guess. Thanks.
I'm trying to think of one. This is off the cuff.
Who is David Land's favorite IndyCar driver of all time?
Oh, this is a good one. This is a good one. They're not. Okay.
Oh.
Boo.
We should have put some limitations.
Yeah, you
on
should
that.
put. Well, you asked the question.
I know. I forgot to look over there.
What do you want, Kevin? What do you want? I'm gonna try to really go back in the day.
You want a hat?
What?
It's a shame it's not bigger crowd. We're asking who told you who you told to stay in their lane.
Oh no.
All right.
All right, let's hear it.
All right. Let's go.
Let's get some dirt race.
Ooh. Late model guy.
I just threw it out. I'm not even a late model guy.
No, I just said late model guy. Man, who was it? Open competition? Was it? Was it like Lucas Wildeval? Well, I mean that didn't help. I was asking. Timmy Mack. What other?
Timmy Creed. What's Timmy Creed's number on the side of his car?
Oh man, I don't know. I have no idea. 20 something? Is it 20? 39? Was it? Yep.
So you get a hat. Congrats, Scott.
What other major race? What major
We're gonna
race
do the
did?
hat dance here.
Okay, who won the Word Outlaw race at Eldora this past Saturday?
Oh, Tony Stewart. Tony Stewart for sure. No, he did. No, he absolutely won it.
Yeah.
That was a good crowd he had over there, so he absolutely won it.
Who won your All-Star race? Sunshine. He just got a hat.
Oh,
Well,
you want a hat?
it could be an oily rag or a. We got lots of Top Gun
Yeah, we
stickers.
got an ornament left.
Just trying to help y'all.
We can just hand these out. We just have
I think
racks
we're
left.
going to hand out the rest.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a wrap.
I think that's a wrap. I want to thank everybody here at McGilvery's, everybody that showed up. I want to thank David for putting on his best basketball shorts tonight.
Oh yeah, you know it. Well, it's an audio podcast, right? They don't know.
Oh, you don't know.
I came. Oh yeah.
We had cameras underneath.
Well, I hope everybody on the live feed got a good show.
No, seriously, thank you so much for coming out. Anybody listens to the show, we appreciate it more than you could ever imagine. Thank you so much.
Make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you, David Land. Thank you, David King Wilson.
Thank you.
And thank you, McGilvery's.
I'm gonna go eat their cheese fries.